As the nation prepares for next year's presidential election, all eyes are on Russia. The country's meddling in the 2016 election was confirmed by special counsel Robert Mueller during his testimony to the House earlier this year. During the public hearing, he warned lawmakers Russia would continue to interfere in our democracy. In Mueller's words, quote, "They're doing it as we sit here." CNET senior producer Dan Patterson followed activity by Russian bots during the impeachment hearings last week. He joins me now. Hi, Dan. Wow, you did some fascinating stuff. So for the past 6 to 8 weeks, you've been following these misinformation, disinformation campaigns that you say really got going during the public hearings, during the impeachment inquiry?
Yeah, so we've been following bots, or what we perceive to be bots based on some data that we've gathered from social media. And there has been a ramp up from the summer all through the campaign as it's progressed. And then when we hit the impeachment hearing last week, we saw a number of conspiracies and false narratives explode, like this conspiracy that Ukraine was behind the hacking of the 2016 election. That is false. It was Russia.
And which we know, by the way, that Russia is more than happy to perpetuate, correct?
That's exactly right, Tanya. Russia has perpetuated this narrative that Ukraine was behind the election. We know that that is false, and in fact, that narrative was popping high. We also saw narratives related to a conspiracy for QAnon or QAnonymous. This is related to the 8chan subreddit or 8chan message board. This is important because a lot of those conspiracies we saw related to other conspiracies. In fact, we saw them tied to the Hunter Biden false narrative conspiracy. We saw them related to the Pizzagate false narrative conspiracy regarding the 2016 election, and a lot of the conspiracies regarding Hillary Clinton running in 2020. Again, a conspiracy and false narrative.
And how were you able to identify these as bots? And how did the social media sites not catch on?
So I want to issue one caveat, and that's that I am a reporter, not a data scientist. So I use a number of tools, and then I cross-check those tools against each other. And then I get on the phone with data scientists who work at these organizations, as well as our own polling analysts here at CBS News. So the number one, or the primary source I use, is a dashboard from the Securing Democracy Alliance, or the Alliance for Securing Democracy. This is a part of the German Marshall Fund, which is a nonpartisan think tank designed to further North American dialogue. So what they do is identify bots and overt accounts like RT associated with Russia, and it looks at the keywords that those accounts are pushing. I also use an account or a site called Bot Sentinel, which lets me kind of cross-check the trending topics, and I use a final tool developed by the University of Indiana that lets me look at individual accounts and kind of gauge the veracity, how real this site appears.
Now, if a reporter can do this, why can't the sites do it themselves and monitor the situation and delete the bots?
That's a great question, Tanya. Many of these social networks have said that they are deleting many of these influence operations as well as the bot accounts, but when I spoke to sources late last week, what they told me is that, look, Twitter and Facebook do a great job of getting rid of bots associated with, say, Russia, Iran, China. That's kind of a game of whack-a-mole. What they haven't been able to effectively counter are the domestic operations that are popping up because, again, according to my sources, there really isn't a lot of distance or daylight between running a legitimate operation using big data to buy advertisements and using some of these shadier tactics that also involve bots.
So when you say domestic operations, are you saying that a lot of these bots are now coming from the U.S.?
One of the best examples we have is the 2018 Alabama special election, where we saw Democrats using influence operations against their Republican opponents. My sources at some of these organizations say that one of the things we can really expect, because this disinformation is so easy to execute and so ineffective, or so effective, inexpensive and effective, is we can see domestic operations pop up throughout the 2020 election.
So that's what we have to look forward to. Is the 2020 election going to be known as the disinformation campaign? campaign run amok? Are we going to see this just proliferate as we get closer to the presidential election?
I think that when we look at those trending topics inside social networks, including Facebook and Twitter, we can expect to see, especially when we look at debates or other big events, a lot of a war for attention in those hashtags and trending topics.
Pretty scary stuff. Dan Patterson, thank you so much for sharing your findings with us.
Good to see you.